another thing, very important thing I discussed was the whole question of the earliest, the format or the form of expressions, the form of recording the Buddha's teaching. Whether the Buddha teaching was first transmitted in the form of stanzas or in prose, which is a huge question. So I can only state the conclusion. We spent a lot of time yesterday, I think nearly at least 1 hour just on that point. The conclusion is that our conviction is that we cannot follow the prevalent opinions of European scholars and Japanese scholars, many Japanese scholars, who propose that the earliest teaching of the Buddha were transmitted in stanzas. As for this question, I'd like to refer you to Venerable Yin Shun's study, and he was the person who really has the most convincing insight for us. And one important point he made in this connection is that to understand the process of the transmission of the canon, which is also the question of the stratification of the canon, we have to bear in mind the way the material that has gone into the canon, the way that this material came from, the source in other words of the material. Where did they come from? Now, Venerable Yin Shun make a distinction between sources that are propagated among the Madhya Desha, that is the so-called central region, such as Magadha and so on, where the Buddha himself was actively teaching. And then this as distinct from the so-called fringe or border regions in India where there was Buddhism in the time of the Buddha, after the Buddha so-called started preaching, but the Buddha himself had never been to. Places like, for instance, where the great master like Kachayana and others came from, they came from those regions to study, to learn about Buddhism. They came to the central region, and after learning, they went back to their own regions. So to cut the story short, there's another one, another distinction made by Venerable Yin Shun, that is the consideration that whether the material was propagated within the Sangha members, or whether the material came from the preaching among the popular masses. So you can see that when you have this twofold consideration, you realize that the question of format, the question of form alone, or even the content alone of the Buddha's teaching cannot lead to a conclusive understanding in regarding the question of stratification. In other words, which were the earliest material, whether in fact the earliest were in fact verses, which is apparently the prevalent opinion of scholars. But we don't believe that. We agree with Venerable Yin Shun that in fact the earlier teaching is most likely in prose. And as Venerable Yin Shun has shown, in fact the first compilation in the whole process of the compiling of the canon, the first compilation started with the Samyutta Nikaya and represented by the sutra part of it. This is a long story, so we cannot give all the details now.